2023. The time is 7:03 p.m. and I will call this regular meeting of the Dickinson City Council to order. Item 1, call to order and certification of quorum.
Simpson.
Here.
Councilmember Jenna is absent. Councilmember Wilson.
Here.
Mayor Skipworth.
Here.
Councilmember Brantley.
Here.
Councilmember Decker.
Here.
Councilmember Linton.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. If you would please rise for the invocation, and this will be delivered tonight by Clint Shuttlesworth from Valiant Church. Please come up, sir.
Thank you, council members and mayor, for having me tonight. I'm just thankful for you guys' service. I know it takes a toll on you, and just giving away your lives is a calling. So let's just pray. Short prayers, reach the throne room. You're not far away. I want you to remember that, all right? Father, we just thank you that you are the great I am. You are the King of Kings and Lord of Lords. Father, we thank you for your wisdom. God, we thank you for your love for us, and Father, your love for this city. And so, Lord, right now, as we go into this council meeting, Father, we're just asking for your wisdom to fall upon us, Lord Father. God, we ask for just your goodness to lead us all of our days. And so, Lord, as we go through this agenda tonight, Father, may there be no quarreling or fighting, Lord Father. But God, may there just be peace in this room and peace in our hearts. And God, may we be people who listen, gather all the facts, and make a decision based on the wisdom that you have given us. And so, Lord, we just thank you, we honor you, and we praise you in Jesus' mighty name. Amen, amen, amen.
Thank you very much. If you'd please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, first to the United States flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And now the Texas Pledge. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state under God, one and indivisible. Thank you very much. Item 4 is proclamations and awards, of which we do not have any this evening. We will move on to item 5, announcements and presentations. Announcements concerning items of community interest. No action will be taken or discussed. Councilmember comments regarding items of community interest in accordance with Texas Government Code Section 551.0415. Item 5A, council comments. We'll begin this evening with, let's begin with Councilman Simpson.
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor, council, city staff, citizens of Dickinson, welcome. Glad to see you all here today, this evening. I want to start my council comments by extending condolences to the family of Mr. Norman Lee Jones, longtime Dickinson resident, and his services will be at Carn Funeral Home on Friday, March 10th. Since our last council meeting, I had the opportunity to attend the retirement celebration for Chief Morales and Captain Mason. Also had the opportunity to go to the Houston-Galveston Area Council meeting. They had committee assignments, and I've been appointed to the Finance and Budget Committee and the Water Resource Committee going forward with these meetings. That is all I have for council comments at this time, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilman Wilson.
Yes, good evening to everybody that's here and whoever's listening at home. I too had the pleasure of being at the awards ceremony for Chief Morales and Captain Melvin Mason. I was glad to see the city got it done. I think it was a two-part deal. It was one, the city gave plaques, and it was also plaques that will be put at the police station, recognize their long-term service. Anyway, I think that cities need to work on their traditions of doing things like that and honoring their staff that's been there for a long time. Also, I attended last Friday night the Knights of Columbus Fish Fry. It will be every Friday night through Lent. I believe it will not be one on the Good Friday, but until then, it'll be every Friday night. If you haven't got anything better to do and you like some good fried fish, stop on out there. The folks will be glad to see you. it's a great fellowship. Anyway, that's it.
All right, thank you. Councilman Brantley.
Thank you. Thanks to everybody that's here tonight. Thanks for everybody online. Really appreciate your support and being here and participating in your city government. This week, I want to, before I get to staff recognition, I want to personally thank the Dickinson Volunteer Fire Department. They are actually currently in the process of hosting a free CPR and defibrillator training for all Little League volunteers. They're doing that right now. And they have generously donated 2 AEDs to Dickinson Little League. So huge debt of gratitude and thanks to the Dickinson Volunteer Fire Department and for the work that they do. Staff recognition this week. I would like to recognize some members from our mowing crew. I know that the weather has jumped up pretty quick, and so grass and weeds are growing. They've been working very hard. Terry Jones, Andrew Church, Felipe Castillo, Cedric Johnson. Thank you guys very much for everything that you do, the hard work that you do, not only mowing our right-of-ways and trying to keep up with that task, but also picking up the additional tasks that they're asked to do, which included this past weekend taking and completely redoing the epoxy on the Bayou Animal Shelter floors. And from what I understand was that they did that in about 24 hours. So thank you to those guys for helping working on that project. So thank you guys very much. That's all I got.
Thank you. Councilman Decker.
Thank you. Welcome to everybody that's here. I have, the fish fry, there is a drive-up window. You don't even have to go in. It's marked. They had over 325 people show up last Friday. We need to fine-tune our managed code enforcement. There's been a car right here on St. Gore. If you come up from St. Gore, that car has been in that yard 3 to 4 months. The grass has been cut, but that car's still there. When people see that, they're lost as far as what to do with code enforcement to get something like that done. And that's just a nice eyesore. There's other ones around town, so maybe we can fine tune. That's all. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And Councilman Linton.
Mayor, council, everyone, thanks for being here tonight. I attended the Land Use Fundamentals webinar. It was pretty interesting, especially about Texas laws related to signage. I know it sounds exciting. Performed at the Texas EquiSearch Volunteer Appreciation. I was just asked to perform for Tim Miller. I don't know if y'all all know, but Texas EquiSearch is based here in Dickinson, Texas, and I've known Tim Miller for probably 15, 20 years. He took a horrible event of his daughter being murdered and turned it into a very positive venture, and I just wanted to mention them. It was a very moving ceremony. It was an appreciation night for all the volunteers, and they had some people that they had saved, that they had actually found alive, and some people that had lost children as well, and other family members. It was very moving. Just wanted to mention that so that we don't forget them, and he kind of does his own thing, but I'm going to reach out to him a bit more to see if the city can do anything to help that organization. I also attended the Volunteer Fire Department event that same evening. I visited the Bayou Animal Shelter, as I try to every week around lunch, and saw the construction of the new shelter kennels, which increased general kennels from 30 to 40 and quarantine kennels from 4 to 6. Also, kudos to Alexis Santiago, as Councilmember Brantley had mentioned, and Public Works and his team for doing a great job applying epoxy to the floor. I think I mentioned it before, but I was pre-vet before I switched to engineering. I was too much of a slacker to be a veterinarian, but I did work in a veterinary clinic for 3 years in high school, and I have actually cleaned kennels, and that epoxy floor is going to come in very handy. Also, BAS will be having a free microchip and vaccination clinic for the first 300 pets this Sunday, March 5th from 1 to 4 p.m. And you can pre-register online or contact the shelter for more information. That was made possible by a donation from the Petco Love Foundation, NanoChip, and also me and my family donated and took care of the 300 microchips that will be used on Sunday. So you can get online and pre-register, and please do so. And the last item I had is a continuing item. I once again contacted Union Pacific Railroad Hotline, a grade crossing hotline, 800-848-8715, about the rough crossing at FM 517. The information for anyone listening online is DOT 748-278X, FM 517 westbound, milepost 27.13, and I won't go into the latitude and longitude. But I essentially mentioned the same thing, and that this is a rough crossing requiring traffic to slow down significantly. Repairs have been made many times over the past few years, with a return to the same condition within approximately 3 to 5 months each time. A long-term solution is preferred if possible. Please let me know if there's anything that I can do or anything that can be done to help facilitate a long-term solution. Thank you very much. And I'd also like to mention that I have one contact with the railroad, and we're waiting on a response from them. And then also at the last council meeting, when I mentioned this, I forgot her name, unfortunately, but someone with the municipal court knew someone with the railroad, and now we have 2 contacts. And then I was working on my house, and a friend from high school gave me a 3rd contact. So hopefully that will move us in the right direction to getting this resolved, and that's all I had.
All right, thank you. And I'd also like to welcome everyone this evening. I see we don't have class tomorrow morning, by the way. Y'all have pictures. They told you. Okay, good. But anyway, welcome for those of you that are tuning in and here in person. We're going to have a presentation in a minute for those of you that can't see, so that's who I was talking to. But we're glad to have you here this evening. I don't really have too many announcements. I would like to thank the VFW for inviting my family to their Mardi Gras event a couple of weekends ago. We had a great time. Love being there, and they were very, very welcoming. So thank you for that. Also like to give a shout out to our Councilwoman Simpson, who's not here this evening, but was with some students in Austin. Furthering education. That's a great thing to do. So I definitely appreciate that. Also want to kind of just general information for people. We are in the season where we start seeing bills get introduced into the state legislature. Some of those bills we'll be keeping an eye on. It may be at some point there might be bills that we will maybe be asking the public in our individual capacities as council members or what have you to please advocate for or against. We'll try to give information as we go. And we always keep an eye on what's happening in Austin about this time of year. And we just hope that the session ends without doing too much damage, typically. So anyway, we're glad that you're here We're glad you're here this evening, and we will move on. I'm guessing that we don't have a pet of the month here. It just breaks my heart every time it's on there, and there's not anything. I'm going to steal the city manager's thunder briefly because I am. And I'm going to introduce the Dickinson High School Aquatics student presentation that are here this evening. So please, if y'all would come on up and present. We're looking forward to it.
Hello? Okay. Can you hear me? Okay. Good evening. And my name is Taylor Williams, and today we will be talking to you about the NOAA grant and the Ocean Guardian School and what role Dickinson High School plays as a part of this program. The first few years of receiving the grant, we worked at educating and creating a change at the school. Now we are here today to spread awareness at a community level. NOAA is the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, founded October 3rd, 1970. Our local office is the Flower Garden Banks National Marine Sanctuary, located in Galveston, Texas. I call NOAA our oceanic police because they are constantly creating new policies to better our world. Their mission is to understand and predict changes in climate, weather, ocean, and coast, as well as to conserve and manage coastal and marine ecosystems and resources. They work to share knowledge with others and to better understand our constantly changing world. So how is Dickinson High School involved? Well, first we have to meet certain requirements to receive the grant. 1, we have to be located in Galveston County. 2, we have to create a plan with a budget that contributes to the conservation of marine habitats. And 3, we have to teach anywhere from kindergarten through 12th grade. An Ocean Guardian School makes a commitment to protection and conservation of local watersheds, the world's ocean, and special ocean areas. The school makes the commitment by proposing and implementing a school or community-based conservation project. We have been a part of the Ocean Guardian School since 2018. The grant has provided water bottle refill stations, reusable bottles for aquatics and IPC students, field trips, guest speakers who come and speak to students, and they have donated $18,000 to help us carry out our plans to better our community. So the picture to my left was a volunteer beach cleanup at Buddy McBride Boat Ramp in Baytown, Texas. To represent the kind of trash we found, I created my 3D model only using recycled materials. While cleaning up, we found tons of microplastics along the rocks, so I used plastic fragments thrown away around the house to represent how everyday items break down and end up in our water. Okay, that's all. Thank you.
Hello. Oh, can y'all hear me? All right. Hello. My section is about plastic and how they affect our ecosystems. First, I want to get into the process of how plastics are formed. It includes 4 different steps. The first step is where raw materials are refined into propane and ethane. The second step, both materials are turned into ethane. This step is usually broken down and known as crackling. The third step, both substances are combined. And in the fourth, the polymers are made for the plastics to form. This process costs us of using many different fossil fuels, which are crude oil, natural gas, coal, and plants. There are many different companies that make plastics, but the 3 largest companies are London Basel, DuPont Incorporation, and Dow Chemical. On my 3D model, I put the 3 most popular types of plastic that are polyethylene, PETs, and polyvinyl chloride. Polyethylene produces plastic bags, PETs produce bottles that carry substances, and polyvinyl chloride produces packaging wear. Next, I want to talk to y'all about single-use plastics, which are plastics that end up in our oceans. They are man-made and takes hundreds of years to break down. We find so much in the oceans due to how easy and cheap they are to get a hold of or lose track of. Many people use them for packaging and serviceware, like water bottles and straws. Due to how popular they are, a lot of people want to ban these plastics because of how harmful they tend to be in our environment. They take many fossil fuels to produce, and them also having toxic chemicals that release into our oceans after they start to break down. Next, what are nurdles? Nurdles are small plastic pellets that come from the raw material that we use to make plastic. They end up in our oceans and waters. Nurdles end up becoming a huge problem due to how tiny they are, and humans tend to forget about them, and they add up, and aquatic organisms misjudge them for food, causing them to die from starvation with a full stomach of plastic.
Hi, my name's Kaylee Hernandez, and I'm going to talk to you guys about the negative impacts of marine debris and plastics. Why are marine debris harmful to the environment? Marine debris can injure or kill marine and coastal wildlife. It can also damage and degrade habitats and cause economic loss to fishing and maritime industries. It also degrades the quality of life in coastal communities, all while threatening human health and safety. Some ways it can be harmful are ingestion and entanglement. Ingestion is the process of taking food, drink, and in this case, any other substance into the body by swallowing or absorbing it. If these objects end up inside an aquatic animal, it can lead to infections and internal bleeding. Entanglement occurs when fishing gear and marine debris wrap around an animal, weighing it down and restricting its movement. This often leads to death and other serious issues. In my 3D model, I used a plastic bag and plastic drink ring to demonstrate ingestion while using twine to demonstrate a rope to show entanglement. Plastics have a number of effects on human health. For example, endocrine disrupting chemicals, also known as EDCs. This can be linked to infertility, obesity, diabetes, prostate and breast cancer, along with many more. This can also cause health conditions linked to additives like reproductive growth, cognitive impairment, and neurodevelopment disorders, which is when an individual has trouble remembering and learning new things. To put this into context, scientists have estimated the average person might eat 5 grams of microplastics in a week, which is about the weight of a credit card. This equals up to be 52,000 particles annually that we do not know about. How does plastic waste link to fossil fuel use and climate change? They represent a direct negative feedback, such as fossil fuel-based plastics causing direct emissions of greenhouse gases throughout their life cycle. Plastics are a part of a sector called petrochemicals, meaning that they are made mostly of oils and gases. This means that corporations make plastics out of dirty fossil fuels. Another way to tie in my 3D model is to better explain that every year, 300,000 whales, dolphins, and porpoises get accidentally entangled in nets and lines, causing them to die a slow and painful death through suffocation, starvation, and exhaustion. Plastics can take hundreds of years to decompose, which wrecks marine environments. So think twice before you become responsible for harming animals and their marine environments. Thank you.
Hi there, I'm Avery Manassi, and today I'm going to tell you about our refillable water fountains and our reusable water bottles that we've implemented at DHS. So first of all, what are they? The refillable water fountains on our campus are water dispensers that sanitize the tap water for the public. They are often found in many public establishments, and they're ideal for places where people would commonly drink non-reusable water bottles, making them very convenient. We have 13 installed in the DHS campus. We've installed them because they're cost-effective, contactless, which is more important now than ever since COVID, and they give the public free access to healthy water. Additionally, they encourage people to reuse their water bottles, reducing our waste. On my slides, you can see the highlighted magnified part of the fountain shows the counter, and it shows how many plastic water bottles have been saved by each dispenser. So the stats on these fountains, what impact do they actually have? We've installed these fountains because they're a great long-term investment. While each fountain costs $1,500 each, they're a long-term investment that will serve much longer than they've been installed. Tap is approximately 500 times cheaper than bottled waters. Tap only costs around $2 per 1,000 gallons, versus bottles which can cost anywhere from $1 to $10 per singular gallon. As of January 27, 2023, we have saved 209,267 water bottles in the approximately 4 years they've been installed, which comes out to be 140 bottles saved per day, hence my 3D model. And while 140 may not seem like a lot per day, it tends to add up. And over the 4 years, we've saved over 8 tons of plastic going into our environment. Reusable water bottles, what are they? Reusable water bottles are water bottles made out of plastic or metal for the purpose of being reused and refilled. These bottles specifically shown are distributed to our aquatic science and IPC science classes at DHS. We've done this to encourage students to discontinue their single-use plastics, and with lessons funded by NOAA and the high school, understand their impact on the environment. These add to our long-term investment in saving our environment. People use water bottles out of convenience, but there's a great cost. 17 million barrels of oil per year are used just on creating non-reusable plastic water bottles. And for some perspective, that could fuel 1.3 million cars per year. According to the EPA, only about 25% of plastics are actually recycled, and the rest contribute to landfills. So think again before you go non-reusable. Thank you.
My name is Layla. The big question is, why do we spend 4 days cleaning up marine debris along our local coastlines? We did this to learn about different concentration of debris along the coastlines to prevent entanglements and ingestions of our wildlife as well as their habitats, and to spread awareness outside of our school and prevent further pollution. Here we have the data of all 4 days of the beach cleanups. At the first day of the Monument Inn in LaPorte, we collected 1,062.93 pounds. On the second day at the same location, we collected 504.95 pounds. On the third day at McBride Boat Ramp in Baytown, we collected 145.14 pounds. On the last day at the Texas City Dike, we collected 1,076.84 pounds. In total, we all collected 2,889.66 pounds of debris along our local coastlines. The reason why Day 1 has such a high number of debris collected is due to a group of boys finding a 500-pound road sign on the shore and carried it all the way to the trash. Day 3 has such a low amount due to a smaller group of students volunteering on that Saturday. Here on my 3D model, you can find different examples of debris on our local coastlines. And as you notice, there is no paper products because paper does dissolve in water, so it's not as common. Why do we have a rain garden? We have a rain garden at school to reduce runoff from our school property and help filter out pollutants in runoff. Here, this is our rain garden at the top where all of us are posing. The rain garden is designed to capture runoff from impervious surfaces such as roofs, sidewalks, streets, or parking lots. Why do we have a cistern? Here at the second picture, where it's just no people at all, that's where our cistern is at our local school. The cistern captures rainfall to prevent runoff at school and release to the drainage system, as this can lead to flooding in our campus. Cisterns are water from an outside source collected in said cistern before being piped into the household water system. Why would we want to reduce stormwater runoff? Firstly, what is stormwater runoff? Stormwater runoff is a mix of precipitation, suspended sediment, debris, and chemical pollutants, which can cause pollution in our waters from the dirty debris and other chemicals that may have floated with it, flooding, which would be caused by said debris and cause damage to public and private property, like our high school, and our eroded stream banks that is caused by sediment clogging waterways, fills lakes, kills fish, and other aquatic animals. We did our 3D models just in case any technical difficulties, so that way we can continue on the presentation. And I would like to thank you all for giving us your time as we present to you with our NOAA presentation.
All right, thank you very much. I believe they want to take a picture. All right, I'll. All right, thank you again. And with that, I'll turn it over to item 5B, the city manager's update.
Thank you very much, Mayor, Council. I was going to start off with a little bit of an update. As you can probably tell, I am not Council Member Jenna Simpson, but I am going to speak on her behalf. Dee actually sent me some notes. She and 3 students are on the Dickinson Youth Action Council, are on a trip with other Galveston County education leaders, advocating for the priorities of K through 12 education. The trip is put together by BAHEP and Clear Lake Area Chamber of Commerce. They met with 3 representatives to talk to them about what they feel are the top 4 priorities: safety and security funding to help with the increased cost of operations, supporting local control of funds, accountability regarding all schools, public and private. Aside from their assigned meetings, they also took a moment to visit Mays Middleton's office and Dr. Greg Bonin's office. They were able to sit down and talk with Dr. Bonin at length, and Council Member Simpson was very proud of how educated the students representing DEAC are on issues at the state level, and they impressed Dr. Bonin as well. So that's a little update from Council Member Simpson. Do want to say we have one of our former interns was one of the presenters tonight. Layla, I know you're over there. Come say hello real quick to the council for those of you who had to. Had to just take a moment there. Public Works intern for those of you that paid attention last summer. Which, by the way, quick plug, we will be about to begin our recruitment again for interns for this summer coming up. We are going to have 8, count them 8, Dickinson High School and other high schools surrounding areas will be considered as well. But of course, we have such great, as I just read off with DEAC, so many great kids right here in Dickinson ISD. So 8 from high school level, but we're also looking at adding 2 from the College of the Mainland as well, so we can start creating that kind of a tiering of students and give some some opportunities to work in local government and see what all we're doing as a city and what other cities do in the area, and really open up a whole opportunity there. Other than that, I did want to give you guys a very quick update in regard to Creekside. One of the big things that we're working on with the Creekside development is that we are monitoring obviously the condition of the facilities, also making sure that the vacancy order remains in place, and that the site is cleaned up as of the most recent update. The landlord ownership is working very hard to meet all of the requirements, and I believe that actually the order has been lifted on the property itself so that they can have some type of a clean title in regard to being able to work with a transition of some ownership along the way, because I know that they're looking at redeveloping the property at this point. So I don't know what the proper term is that we put in place. Justin, what did we lift? Did I do good enough? Okay, just want to make sure. I don't want to misrepresent it. But so that being said, is that we're in a good place because of the memorandum of understanding that was approved by council in the last meeting. Really is allowing the ball to roll with Creekside ownership in the city to come together on a redevelopment of that property. They are fully engaged with all of the departments of the city that pertain to this, as well as the Economic Development Corporation. So we're hopeful to have some pretty great work to be done to present to council in the near future. The other thing I wanted to bring up tonight is that we submitted an application for 2 projects in the city of Dickinson in regard to the TxDOT Transportation Alternatives Grant. I'm not familiar with the history in the sense of I'm not certain that we have applied for this grant in the past. It doesn't seem that we've engaged TxDOT and HGAC historically on this, but I don't want to be definitive on that. But that being said, the application that we've put in place and have sent to TxDOT for consideration are, number one, a full reconstruction of Farm to Market 1266 from 517 to 646 to expand it to a 3-lane highway with a 10-foot wide shared path. If you remember Halloween night 2021, young lady Zanaya was tragically taken from this community in her senior year of high school. And so we want to make sure that we have a safe route for people to be able to walk and bike up and down a very busy highway. And so what we've done is that we've set an application out to TxDOT for the consideration of that project. And we may have some other opportunities with that as well, which may be coming at the next council meeting as well. The second project is a project that deals with student safety around 517 in Baker and 517 in Owens. What we're looking at there is TxDOT has been pretty clear that they're not going to add a second signal at Baker and 517. But what that does allow us to do is there is an opportunity to create a different signalization at Baker, which would be a pedestrian-initiated red light, basically, and to create pedestrian protections on 517, basically like a pedestrian refuge in the middle of 517. So if someone gets caught between the lights, they have an opportunity to be behind some concrete to limit impact. So one of the big things we're trying to do is really emphasize in this grant school safety, pedestrian safety, biking safety. So these projects would, if both of them are funded, would probably somewhere in the neighborhood of around $16 to $18 million, depending on what TxDOT would approve. So these would be pretty major projects. The main one being the first project I spoke of, a complete reconstruction of 1266. With that, that's all I have for this evening.
All right, thank you. We'll move on to item 6, public comments. Members of the public are invited to give comments at this time, lasting not longer than 3 minutes. Comments may be general in nature or may address a specific agenda item and should be directed at the entire council, not individual members of council or staff. Any speaker making personal attacks or using vulgar or profane language shall forfeit his or her remaining time and shall be seated. In compliance with the Texas Open Meetings Act, the city council may not deliberate. Our first comment tonight is from Mr. John Harris.
John Harris, 3711 Brow Drive. Mayor, council, Mr. City Manager, I'd just like to say thank you to all of you, especially Jace, Alexis, and the street crew. Those guys came out this week in BioCrest subdivision, took care of some problems out there, did an excellent job. Something that's been needed to be addressed for quite some time. So I just want to say from at least 4 taxpaying citizens in Dickinson, we appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, thank you, sir. And next we have Mr. Garland Copeland.
My name is Garland Copeland, 3717 Kellner Road, Dickinson, Texas. Council, Mayor, Manager. Tonight I'm questioning the method that the City Council uses to utilize the consent agenda at these council meetings. Time and time again, large amounts of funds are being spent without any transparency. This prevents the citizens from knowing exactly where each of you stand on these said expenditures. There are 2 examples of that tonight. Item 7F and 7G. 7F dealing with the new contract for the city manager. The way it's written in the agenda, it will be, if nothing changes, it will be voted on in the consent agenda without any discussion, and it'll happen without council even having seen the final contract document. The wording in all this says the document will be similar, substantially similar to the draft, okay? So if you approve it tonight, you will have approved it without seeing the final document. And there are a lot of problems in it that I see. The second on 7G has to do with approving $300,000 expenditure of EDC to a firm to do a design for a parking garage for which, to my knowledge, we don't have a project approved for which the parking garage will support. Now, if I'm wrong, tell me I'm wrong. But I've not seen anything published that shows a project 2 levels, and it's designed for 2 levels. And I don't remember seeing anything about a 2-level parking garage in support of some other project. So the main thing that I think you need to understand, if you approve this contract tonight for the city manager, you will have done it without seeing the final document. Thank you.
Thank you. And next up, we have Mr. James White.
James White, representing Penny's Beer Garden, 1001 FM 646 Road North, Dickinson, Texas. In 2019, Penny's Beer Garden came to Dickinson, where we worked with zoning and planning, economic development, and city council to get approval for our business. Unfortunately, while working with the city, we were never made aware that economic development funds may have been available to our business at that time. Shortly after opening, another business owner made us aware of grants and loans that could be applied for through the city. And after some research, we began the process of applying for assistance in expanding and restoring our historic structure. However, when the city reached 20,000 citizens, it is our understanding that economic development can no longer assist businesses like ours directly. Thanks to the efforts of new city leaders, we were able to get information about alternative programs such as the Dickinson Management District, and we were recently approved for a street sign improvement, and we are working towards additional assistance. Navigating city programs can be a difficult and daunting task, so we are thankful that the individuals who volunteer their time for Dickinson care enough to want to see this city grow. Having a program or a board that can help new and existing businesses navigate the resources that are available to them would greatly benefit the businesses, the community, and this city. Thank you for continuing to invest in our business.
Thank you. We'll now move on to item 7, the consent agenda. The following items are considered routine by the City Council and will be enacted by one motion. There will not be a separate discussion on these items unless a council member requests, in which event the item will be removed from the consent agenda and discussed after the consent agenda. I would like to remove item 7F from the consent agenda. Do we have a motion to approve the rest of the consent agenda?
I want to pull 7G.
All right, there's also a request to pull 7G. Is there a motion to approve the rest of the consent agenda?
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion approved by Councilman Simpson, a second by Councilman Linton. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Move on to item 7F, resolution of the City Council of the City of Dickinson, Texas, authorizing the mayor to execute a city manager agreement with Mr. Theogene Melanson for the provision of city management services. Do we have a motion on this item?
Second.
Motion to approve by Councilman Simpson, by Councilman Wilson, a second by Councilman Simpson. I have a couple comments on this item. The first one is to address some remarks that were just made about how the consent agenda functions. So first of all, the council has seen this contract. The council, after discussing the city manager's performance in executive session last time, discussed the contract. It was drafted up. When we get the packets, it has all of the supporting documentation. I would certainly hope that no one on city council is voting on the consent agenda without reading the documentation in the packet. This is how this works on every city government in the state of Texas and elsewhere. As I know, we get the documentation. You can all read the documentation. It is all posted online with the agenda, the full packet. So that is completely false that the city is about to approve things on the consent agenda that we have no idea what it is. To the other point that when we approve things on the consent agenda, that it means we don't know where people stand. You do know where they stand. They voted for it. Any one person can remove an item from the consent agenda. So if you have an objection, all you must do is say, I want to remove the item, and then you can vote against it. That's how those function. They function to try to speed the meetings along when we have items such as this. So that's how the consent agenda functions. Just a primer for everyone. So there you are. Okay, are there any other comments on this item?
On 7F?
Yeah, correct.
Yes, I'd like to see approximate cost. I've looked through here maybe 3 or 4 times. And
That document's been provided.
I've got it, the draft.
No, the changes and the approximate costs were provided
Well,
previously.
I didn't find approximate cost of this contract.
They were given to us in an executive session last meeting. They absolutely were.
I'd like to see it.
I'm sure we can provide it to you, but that information's been provided. Has everybody remember receiving that? All right, thank you. There. Yeah, Councilman Wilson.
Comment on the word that's in here also that says indefinite. You know, I've received several calls about this. It's in there because when the charter was changed 3 years ago, that was put in the charter that the contract would be indefinite. So what we're doing is following the charter. If there's opposition to this, I'm assuming that you'll have to have a charter change. But that was voted on by the people for that term to be put in there when it refers to this particular contract. So this is not something we just came up with, it's a charter change. So anyway, for people that are out there saying, you know, all different things, they need to check the facts. Thank you.
I'd also like to add that, you know, an indefinite term does not mean an eternal term. That is not what that means. What that means is that an indefinite employee works at a place until they don't. And the way that you leave would be you quit, you're fired, or, you know, you pass away or something like that, or you can't work anymore. So indefinite simply means that there is not a regular period where this can be brought up. So at the college where I work, virtually every employee, not all, but many are on contract. So what happens is often people are not actually terminated. You simply wait for the contract to expire. And when the contract expires, if no action is taken, then that person is no longer employed. An indefinite employee simply doesn't have a term contract and they work until they are let go or they quit or separate in some way. So indefinite, again, indefinite does not mean eternal. It does not mean that. And as Councilman Wilson said, that is what the charter actually says. The current contract saying that it's a term contract does not vibe with the charter. It is not permissible. So, Councilman Brantley, do you have a comment as well?
Yeah, I was going to ask for this item to be pulled anyway because in reviewing the language that we discussed last week, Justin, if you could go back to number 7, the wording with regards to the accrued time that we discussed. I'm sure you got it in your notes.
I haven't noted that, so we'll just, I mean, when you approve it, just say approved to the terms approved in executive session.
Okay. Yeah, because we had a copy of the contract and I had read it, so I just want to make sure that I covered that. Yeah, the only other thing I'd like to say, going back to my notes, I was able to spend a couple hours with Theo last week after we provided our evaluations, and thank you for your receptiveness. I know that we talked about quite a few things, and my experience working with you, is that I appreciate your leadership, your receptiveness, and your responsiveness, and your transparency. So, and I especially appreciate your willingness to work on the things that we talked about, and you being receptive to that, and your professionalism. So thank you.
Thank you. I'd also like to add, kind of in a substantive way, that I think, you know, we recently did the performance evaluations. Those are public record, by the way. If anybody wants to read them, they're available to you. You know, the council was almost overwhelmingly positive. The response I received in the community is routinely positive. Nobody is universally liked, of course, but generally speaking, I receive very positive comments. People are pleased with the progress that has gone on, tangible progress, road work that has gone on that's been neglected for many years, drainage improvements that have been neglected for many years, just a general sense of professionalism and reform in the city government, and that's what I hear from people. That's what I base my evaluation on, plus my own observations, having worked with our city manager. And so I'm you know, that's kind of my comment, to say I'm pleased with the performance that he's had, and hope that we can continue the relationship. So, are there any other comments on this?
7G.
Well, we're still on 7F. We'll get to it in a minute. Councilman Linton.
Yes, so I've talked to a couple people, citizens that had issues with this as well, and so I want to just go on the record so you know where my thought process is at concerning Theo and the city manager agenda item. Since I've been here, and just a reminder, I am not intimidated nor beholden to anyone on this planet, and that's kind of how I operate. He has been very responsive, accurate, quick in his answers. He's conducted himself professionally, and the job performance has just been exceptional. When we were doing the evaluation, it was actually difficult to find areas of improvement, and that in itself indicates why I'm voting to approve this, or I will vote to approve it. So I just want to make sure that I'm on the record for that. And of course, as usual, if anyone disagrees with me and has any questions, I will be available after the meeting.
All right, thank you. Are there any other comments?
Yeah, I just want to
Councilman
say,
Simpson.
thank you, Mayor. There are neighborhoods that hadn't been touched for close to 30 years that got touched almost immediately once Theo was hired. There were drainage places where I could see, like I had no idea there was a culvert there until some ditch work got done. I am big on plans. I like to have, TxDOT certified plans in place and uniform development codes. I shudder at the thought of people saying we don't need to do certain things. We can just all sit around and figure it out ourselves. And so I'm pleased with the direction that we are going, and I made those comments known in my evaluation.
All right, thank you. If there's no further comments, we'll take this item 7F to a vote.
Move to approve.
No, it's already
okay.
over there.
Yeah.
I guess I know how you're going to vote, so all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Mine.
The motion carries with Councilman Decker voting no. Move on to item 7G, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Dickinson, Texas, approving an expenditure of funds by the Dickinson Economic Development Corporation to engage the professional services of Kimley Horn and Associates, Inc.
Approve.
So motion to approve by Councilman Wilson. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilman Brantley. Discussion. I'll kick this one off as well. We have, for some time, have had a project moving ahead with a parking garage structure near the Water Street property. Years ago, we had a federal grant that was repurposed for that use. That has been going on. I was not even the mayor at that time. I was on council when we began that. So that has been in the works for quite a period of time. So this is really nothing new here as far as that parking garage goes. So we're at the point we need to start actually building the thing. So this is the necessary step on that process. Councilman Wilson, you had a comment where you?
No, I was just making the motion, because I'm pretty sure it's been 4 or 5 years since the grant that originally was for the market that was not being built was then reapplied for to be out there at the Water Street project. The project has, since the idea of the garage being built there, when you look at the project, there's a lot of land, it looks like a lot of land, but when you start putting stuff on there and then doing surface parking, you don't have a lot. So basically the only way to get that project moving is to get the parking garage built, which we have the grant money for. So, and we've had it for, I don't know, about a year or two now, I think, since it had to be redone, so. Yeah, since 2020.
Councilman Simpson?
Yeah, I was going to say, I recall us getting the grant repurposed before I got elected as well. I remember being on the public market advisory team, and then when that shut down, that happened. And so this has definitely been in the works for a while.
Are there any other comments on this item?
Yes.
Councilman Decker?
What I've got here is 239 parking spaces. Now, is that going to be just 2 levels, or 3 or 4?
City Manager?
Yes, so this is going to be for 2 levels. It's the original scope of work that the grant was approved for. Just to give a little bit of history so we can understand why we're here today. This project, this parking garage is a part of a $4.5 million parking garage, of which $3 million is being paid for by the Economic Development Administration. So what we are doing is working with a developer. In fact, I'm very excited that we're very close to bringing before council in a presentation the full scope of Water Street. I want to also say that the Economic Development Corporation has been working because they applied for this grant. The city did not. Okay, so that's why it hasn't been sitting at city council back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. But the Economic Development Corporation, this has been kind of been a project in the works for quite a long time. Why it's at city council today is because the Economic Development Corporation, normally you guys basically approve full budgets and you say, boom, do everything within that budget. What this is saying that, hey, on top of the budget, this right here, you are, to make it very clear to the grant administration, you are absolutely approving this expenditure so that and whenever we go up for federal single audit, there can be no question that the city council approved the expenditure of this funding. This was properly vetted through the RFP process, RFQ process for engineers. Kimley Horn was considered by the Economic Development Corporation to be the most responsive applicant, and so that's why it's here today.
All right. Also, I'm just going to bring this up since we're on the item. There have been allegations made in the past that about the question of free parking in this garage. That is a term of the EDA grant, is it not? That the parking be free for everyone. Understood. Are there any other comments on this item?
Engineering costs covered as part of the grant.
Yeah, so what will happen is that basically this part is going to be on the design portion, and what ends up happening is that the way federal grants work is going to be, we are going to be able to exhaust federal funding first, and then we're going to be covering the rest. So all this front end stuff, the design that then goes to bid for construction, everything leading up will be reimbursable to the city until we exhaust the $3 million, and everything over the top. Well, I say the city because I'm in the city council meeting. EDC, and then the rest will be covered by the EDC.
But the engineering costs are covered by the grant.
Yes.
They're reimbursable.
Any other questions? Hearing none, we'll take this to a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Move us on to item 8, adjournment. So motion by Councilman Wilson to adjourn, a second by Councilman Simpson. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We are adjourned at 8:01.